Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be working on movement after a fall. So I've got a couple people in class today who took a spill yesterday, one on roller skates, one walking. Anytime we take a fall, I want to assume that there is a little bit of a whiplash. Once we start to fall, our head is going to be the fastest moving part of the body as we hit the ground, so that can create whiplash effect to the spine. It's going to be in the direction of the fall, and that can create some issues in our neurology and how the muscles are holding tension in the body. And so addressing how we're moving after a fall, getting a good assessment, how are things feeling different today compared to how they felt yesterday during our movement assessment, is going to be real helpful, because the areas where we're holding extra tension related to that fall actually increase our risks of having another fall in the near future. So I want to address those, work on good mobility, and do a little bit of work to address core stability in order to reduce future fall risks. So today we're going to be working in the chair. Part of the reason I want to work in the chair is falling, hitting knee, hitting wrist means it's going to be a little bit harder to get on the floor, so the chair becomes a really good tool for addressing movement, getting all the joint mobility that, at least a minimal amount of joint mobility that we can get to assess spinal mobility, hip mobility, all the stuff. We're also going to kind of get into that pelvic floor breath work as well. So with all that, let's get started. So we're going to start on the floor on our back with our feet on the chair. First thing I want to do is get some breath work to engage our crocodile breath, our abdominal core, and then also our turtle breath, trying to bring that breath down into the pelvic floor, seeing if we can get some expansion and good contraction at that pelvic floor layer. That base foundational layer of the pelvic floor is going to be integral for good spinal mobility and core stability. So starting out, making our nice big C shapes with our hands. Our feet are on the chair. I want knees to be roughly 90 degrees. I want hips to be roughly 90 degrees. Hands are going around the abdominal core, below the rib cage and above the hip bones in that nice meaty section of the abdominal wall. Thumbs are pressing into the low back musculature. Index fingers are wrapping around to get a little bit of the abdominal musculature. And the palms are pressing into the side body to feel that side musculature. And I want to imagine that abdominal wall like a balloon. We're taking nice inhales in through our in through our nose, filling up that abdominal wall and feeling it expand out and away, pushing into the thumbs in the back, index fingers in the front, and out through the side palms and our side body. On our exhale, we're exhaling out through the mouth and draw that navel up and into the spine. I want to start to kind of imagine that abdominal wall where we're bringing that breath is a big beach ball. As we inhale, we're trying to expand that beach ball out as far as we can. As we exhale, imagine that your belly button is pushing all that air, like you're pushing down on that beach ball into the floor to get as much of that air out. And with each inhale, we're seeing if we can expand that beach ball a little bit wider, a little bit bigger. We're going to do this for between 5 and 10 breaths. And I want our breath to be nice and slow. So this can be between 3 seconds, 5 seconds, up to like an 8-second count inhale and a 3, 5, or 8-second count exhale. I don't want to force the breath as far as time. I want to find a nice, slow rhythm that we feel comfortable with. Again, with each one, see if you can expand that balloon a little bit wider. Kind of notice the shoulders and the head. I want to make sure that we're not scrunching up, lifting up. I want to feel the shoulders stay soft and relaxed to the floor. As we get to 5 up to 10 breaths, we're going to let our hands soften off of our wrist side. We're going to open the knees up so that the knees are shoulder width apart, but keeping the feet touching together. So we're kind of in a frog position with our legs. Hands are going to go on the knees, and we're going to actively push the knees away, full extension of the elbows, and at the same time, pull the knees into the hands so that you create some tension in your core. And I want to maintain that tension, so I'm constantly pushing and pulling. And we're going to get into that same crocodile breath on the inhale. Exhale, drawing our navel into the spine. But at this point, we're going to now bring it down into that turtle breath. So on the turtle breath, as you exhale, I want you to do a light kegel, like you're holding your pee, holding a fart. And squeeze lightly as you exhale. On your inhale, allow that inhale breath to move down into the pelvic floor and release that kegel with your breath. Feel that breath move into that contraction and feel it open up into a light stretch. You might feel a stretch, you might not feel a stretch, but let that breath release the kegel. On the exhale, we're getting that kegel, we're squeezing. At the same time, belly is pressing down into the floor. We're still expanding that beach ball, and we're still pressing the air out with our belly button on the exhale. With that breath and that kegel and that release of the kegel in our breath, we can think of we're now working through the top and the bottom of that beach ball. So the first breath of the crocodile breath is kind of looking at the walls of the beach ball. Pushing down through the belly is kind of pushing through the front wall. Getting into that kegel is kind of tightening up the floor and then feeling that floor release and stretch. And again, 5 to 10 nice, slow breaths of that turtle breath. As you get to 5 up to 10 breaths, we're going to relax our hands. We're going to take our time and very slowly roll to our side. Come up to a sit. I want to go slow here, make sure we're not dizzy or lightheaded. If you are, then take your time. And we're going to come all the way up to sit on the chair. So sitting on the chair, I want to kind of sit to the front of the chair. Both feet are nice and flat to start with. First thing, since we've had a fall, knees might be a little sensitive, we're going to kind of just assess, can we get into a figure 4 position? Can we bring ankle up to the knee? If we can with one side, we're going to go slow and do the same thing on the other side. I always want to kind of go slow, make sure it's not painful at the knee. We can also just kind of gently have a small assessment of like, what is the position of one hip compared to the other? My right knee sits a lot higher than my left knee. That's largely based on having 5 surgeries on this knee and I have a little bit more tension in the right hip. My left knee sits a little bit lower. So if you find that one hip is a little tighter and that knee sits a little higher, we're going to start on that side. If this is painful at a level 3 or above, that you can't even get into this position, then I want you to skip this particular part of the movement. Go ahead and move to the next part where we're no longer in this position. From here, we're going to take some nice breaths in. As we inhale, we're going to lift the knee up to the ceiling. As we exhale, we're reaching that knee down lightly and feeling that kind of mobilizing deeper in that hip socket. Each one, nice slow lift. As we reach down on the exhale, we're kind of squeezing into it. Can you get a little bit more range of motion on each one without going into pain? We're just going to stick with about 5 nice easy reps, and then we're going to move and do the same thing on the other side. Again, nice inhale, lift the knee, exhale, reach the knee to the floor. I want to pay attention to how does the left hip feel compared to the right hip? Where do you feel it tight and stretch? Do you feel it more in the back of the hip? Do you feel it more in the front of the hip? Do you feel it more at the knee? Once we do 5 on this side, we're going to switch back to the other side. Now we're going to add in some folds. So on our inhale, I still want to continue to lift that knee. On the exhale, we're going to reach the knee back down, and then we're going to add in a forward fold. I'm simply letting the hands reach over and drop, and I'm seeing how low can I kind of reach forward, allowing the shoulders to drop down. Inhale, I'm coming all the way back up and lifting that knee again. Exhale, reach the knee to the floor as we fold. And again, just doing 5 reps to start. Get a good feel for where does this feel tight. Is it more in that outside of the hip? Do you feel it more on the front of the hip, or do you feel it more at the knee? Or maybe you feel it in the low back at this point. Once we do 5 on this side, we're going to switch and do the same thing on the other side. So again, inhale, allow that knee to lift. Exhale, reach to the floor as we add our fold. Again, I want to notice, how does it feel on this side and how is it different on this side than it was on the other side? Becoming more sensitive to the differences in what you're feeling from side to side, whether it's tension, tightness, tension, restriction, lack of range of motion, you don't have as much, you can't go as far, or it feels harder to do. Is it painful? These are all really, really helpful assessment points, especially after a fall, to kind of get a good picture of how the body is moving currently and what we can do to kind of get you back to balance, back to better equilibrium in order to prevent another fall. All right, we'll go ahead and bring both feet nice and flat to the floor. Now I want to get into a little bit of shoulder work. We're going to bring hands down to the side, spreading the fingers as wide as you can, fully extending the elbows like you're trying to reach down to touch the floor with your fingertips. And we're going to spiral those palms up towards the ceiling. I want to feel that spiral so that shoulder blades kind of drop down and chest opens up to the ceiling. And then we're going to spiral both hands internally. Actually, first I want to kind of shrug up. As we shrug, we're spiraling hands internal so the thumbs point down, and then reaching to the floor. Let me turn sideways so this is more visible. So I want to shrug up, allow the shoulders to roll forward as the hands move a little bit forward, and then reach as we continue to spiral thumbs down so that we get this nice rounded upper back. Then we're inhaling again as we shrug, roll the shoulders back as we spiral the palms back up to the ceiling, and then reach to the floor straight down, kind of at our hips or behind the hips. I'm spiraling those palms up to the ceiling as we do that. Inhale again as we shrug, spiral forward, hands move forward, reach slightly forward, feeling that nice rounded upper back. See how much can you feel that stretch kind of across the upper back, between the shoulder blades as we're downwardly, thumbs are reaching downward and we're reaching forward. And when we inhale, shrug, spirals palm up, then slowly reach down, continue to spiral those palms up to the ceiling. Can you then feel that stretch across the upper chest? Good. Now I want to do, we're doing basically the same thing, but we're now going to work one shoulder at a time. So starting with the palms facing up, we're now going to spiral just one side. We can start with that right side, palm spirals down. At this point, I'm keeping my arms more even with the shoulders. I'm not reaching forward and back. So I'm spiraling one side. I want to kind of feel, how does that spiral feel at the level of the shoulder, where the long bone of the humerus meets the shoulder socket? We're spiraling all the way in, palm spirals up, and then doing the same thing to the other side. These are our bowls of soup. Notice if one shoulder feels smoother than the other. Is one shoulder a little clicky? Is it feel a little restricted and tight? Are you getting some crepitus, some grindy or crunchiness to it? Is it a little uncomfortable? Is it painful? I want to make sure we are not moving into pain. We can move right up to the edge, but I don't want to move into it where it starts to trigger the pirate look. If this is feeling pretty good, then we can start to move both sides at the same time. So as I spiral one hand down, I'm spiraling the other hand up simultaneously, and we can start to allow that shoulder to round forward and then round back to the other side as we start to kind of wind up through the upper back. At this point, I want to kind of imagine that from fingertip to fingertip, we're a wet washcloth, and we're trying to wring out that washcloth. And I want to feel that wringing out effect to come up into the shoulders, into that upper back area. And how does this feel on the right shoulder compared to the left shoulder? Is one side tighter, more restricted? Is it painful? And how is that different than it was previous to the fall? Go ahead and let the hands rest down. Now we're going to get some assessment into our low back. We can kind of come back into that crocodile breath, inhaling, breathing out through the side body, forward into the belly, into the low back. As we breathe in, allow that belly to move forward, and we're going to get a little bit of tilt and sway in our low back. As we exhale, we're drawing that navel in, and we're lightly scooping the tailbone. I want to make sure that this is not painful in the low back, and what I'm really assessing for is it more sensitive in one direction than the other. As we inhale, we're going into lumbar extension. Is it sensitive in that direction? Is it a little bit painful? As we exhale, drawing that navel in and scooping, we're going into lumbar flexion. Is it painful? Is it sensitive? Is it more sensitive in one direction than it is in the other? And something to note here is, as I'm doing this, I am not moving my shoulders. My shoulders are remaining over my hips. So I don't want my shoulders to be rocking forward and back. I'm getting all of this movement is from the pelvis itself. Pelvis is scooping. That's getting that nice rounding in the back. Shoulders kind of drop down, if anything. Inhale, pelvis tilts forward. Belly opens up. That kind of lifts the shoulders straight up. This is a great movement to do throughout the day, especially if it feels a little tight. And if it does feel a little bit of tightness, especially in that low back, do you feel it more on the right side of the low back or do you feel it more on the left side of the low back? The side that you feel it on is going to be relevant to our fall, and so we want to pay attention to that. Now I want to kind of come back and add in our hands, our spiral hands. So as we inhale, belly's opened up, we got our nice sway in the back. I want to have palms spiraled up towards the ceiling, kind of at our side. As we exhale, starting to scoop, we're shrugging our shoulders, spiraling hands, thumbs down, reaching forward as we exhale and scoop the tailbone. So we're combining what we did with the shoulders, now with our pelvic tilts. So inhale, nice spiral up, getting nice and tall. Can you feel that stretch across the upper chest? Reaching down through the fingertips at the very end. And then exhale as we shrug up, scooping the pelvis. Palms come forward as the thumbs turn down to the floor. Can you feel this as a stretch through that upper back all the way down into the low back? I want to make sure we are only moving up to the point right before pain. Slight discomfort, not pain. If that low back or shoulder or neck are painful, then you need to back off. And if you're having trouble with this, with it being too painful, especially around the back area, this is where I would encourage you to go ahead and schedule a consultation with me. Good. All right. So now I want to go ahead and we're going to let arms drop to the side. And if you have a chair that you can grab the bottom of, I want to go ahead and grab it. And we're going to pull our shoulders down. And as we're doing that, let your elbow pits spiral out and away as if we're turning our palms up to the ceiling so that you feel your shoulder blades packed down and back. I want that nice opened up chest. I don't want shoulders to be rounded forward. I want to feel those shoulder blades packed down and back, chest is opened up. The hands are pulling the shoulder blades down, so I don't want shrugging in the shoulders as well. We're going to do some neck mobility now. And this is going to be a really, really important assessment point. Again, when we fall, our head travels faster. So as we hit the ground, there's more than likely going to be a whiplash type of effect. And that's going to impact the neck the most. So I want to have some soft assessment of how does our neck feel? What's mobility? What feels restricted? Where does it feel tight? So hands are grabbing down, elbows are spiraled out, nice and tall as we can in our spine. Taking our nice inhale breath, exhale, we're checking our blind spots, looking over the right shoulder. Inhale as we come back to the center. Exhale as we check our left blind spot. Notice what side feels tighter, more restricted than the other. If it's painful, then I want to make sure we are not moving into pain. With the neck, I don't even want to go above a level 2. I want to keep it below a level 2 if the neck is sensitive, especially after a fall. I want to be very, very soft. I don't want to provoke the nervous system at a time where the nervous system is kind of recovering from a fall. So, how does this mobility feel compared to your regular daily neck mobility? Is it a little tighter? Do you feel tension in different areas? What's different about the left compared to the right? As we come back to the center, now we're going to get into our tilt and lift. This one's a really crucial one. We're kind of assessing our scalenes. They're deep muscles. They connect to our rib cage. When they tighten up, they can create a lot of problems, largely because there is nerve and vasculature that moves through those muscles, and so when they get tight and restricted, they can pinch down on those nerves and vascular structures. So we're going to lightly tilt the head. Ear drops a little bit towards the shoulder. I don't want to drop a whole lot. It's a light tilt. Then opposite ear, we're lifting that ear up towards the ceiling. You can imagine you got a piece of string pulling, or you're trying to touch the ceiling. Inhale as we bring it to center. Exhale as we tilt to the other side and lift. If this is feeling okay, as you lift your ear, whatever side that ear is, the hand, so as I'm lifting my left ear, I can use my left hand to pull down my shoulder actively to create a little bit more traction stretch on that side. And then inhale, exhale to the other side and doing the same thing. I want to be soft with this. This is not a hard pull. I'm not trying to force it. How does it feel on the right side compared to the left side? Is one side tighter, more restricted? Is it painful? Again, I want to avoid moving into pain. And how is it different than normal? We generally have our normal tightness and tension that if we do our daily assessment, we become really aware of, which is helpful so that in a time when we have a fall, we can be able to compare. Oh, this feels different. Maybe that's something important that I need to work on. All right, last for the neck, we're going to get into some shallow neck rolls. Now, this is where I want to be even more cautious. This can trigger some vestibular, so if there's some dizziness and lightheaded related to the fall, I want to be extra cautious, extra careful. If you feel this gets you dizzy, if this triggers a vestibular response, I want you to go ahead and stop the movement. Don't carry on with it. Again, that would be a good time to schedule a session with me. So, starting shallow, this is not a deep neck roll. Dropping chin to the chest, we're moving right ear towards the right shoulder lightly, then we're letting our gaze go up to the ceiling, and then our left ear to the left shoulder, and then chin back down to chest. And we'll continue those 4 points, kind of smoothing them out into a circle and noticing where does it feel tight, where does it feel restricted. Where is that borderline edge of where it becomes painful without going over it? And I want to stay as shallow as necessary for this to not be painful. If it's not painful, we can slowly go a little deeper as long as we don't trigger into pain. And once we do 5 in one direction, we're going to come back to our starting point. We're going to start over reversing directions. Chin to chest, light left ear to left shoulder, gaze up to the ceiling, and then right ear to the right shoulder, and then chin back down to the chest. And then slowly opening that circle up, smoothing out the edges. How does it feel in this direction that's different than the other direction? And how does this feel different than when we normally do our neck rolls? Are you feeling anything related down into the shoulder? Is it more specific right side versus left side? Can you feel it tight more towards the spine? And how does that relate to what you might have been feeling in the shoulder when we did our shoulder assessment? And I want to keep that open to what we might be feeling in our low back or rest of our spine, especially as we get into more of our spinal assessment. So we're now going to turn and sit sideways on the chair. So I've got the chair, back of the chair is now to my left. My hip is fully on the front edge of the chair. I got my left hip on the chair. My right hip is off the chair. That knee is down towards the floor. I want to make sure we are balanced. If you feel like you need to hold on to the back of the chair, that's okay, because I want to make sure we're not worried about falling. Knee, I want as much underneath the hip as possible, and the toe is tucked. I want to feel that big toe loaded. And really the first thing we're going to do is a little bit of light big toe mobility. So I want to have a decent amount of downward pressure into the floor to feel that big toe on the ground. And we're going to kind of slightly reach into the heel, like we're trying to push that heel back. And then we're going to rock the knee forward. I just want to kind of let that knee rock back and forth. That might pull the big toe off the floor a little bit, but as we reach back, can you feel some stretch in the big toe, maybe in the arch of the foot? And then we're coming out of it. Can we reach back, get into that load, and then kind of unload? How does that feel in that big toe? Is it tight? Is it restricted? Is it painful? You might notice your quad feels a little shaky on this side. I want to pay attention to that. I want to make sure that this is not painful at the knee and it's not painful at the big toe. And then we're going to turn and do the same thing on the other side. So again, getting that big toe loaded. And let that knee kind of rock forward so it lifts that big toe a little bit. And then we're reaching that knee back as we're pressing down into the floor. Can you feel that stretch at the big toe or the arch of the foot? Does this side feel tighter than the other side? Is it tighter, more restricted? Is that normal? Is that how it normally feels when you assess your big toes? Or is this different? If it's different, it's probably going to be related to our fall, and that's going to be something that's a big deal. Once we get 5 on that side, we're going to turn back around. So I want to continue to feel that big toe loaded down into the floor. I want to feel that light stretch through the big toe. Now we're going to get into pelvic tilts, but we're just working one side pelvis. So we're going to inhale into that belly, allowing that belly to move forward. That pelvis tilts forward, creating some sway in the low back. On the exhale, we're drawing our navel in as we scoop. And as I scoop, I'm also pushing into that big toe. I want to feel that load into a light stretch through the front of the hip. Inhale, we're unloading it, drawing that breath into our belly, big sway in the back. That unloads the big toe lightly. Exhale, scoop as we press down. Feel that load through the front of the hip. Draw that navel up and into the spine. The more we do that, the more we'll feel some light stretch at the front of the hip. How does that feel? Is that tight in the hip? Is it tighter than usual? How does that feel at the big toe as well? Once we get 5 on this side, we're going to switch and do the same thing on the other side. Again, big toe is tucked and loaded. Nice inhale, big sway in the back as this side pelvis tilts forward. Exhale, we're pressing into that big toe, scooping the pelvis as we draw that navel up and in. Feel that load through the front of the hip. Inhale, nice big sway in the back. Exhale, drawing, pushing, loading the big toe, drawing the navel in, nice scoop. Is this side tighter, more restricted than the other side? Once we do 5 on that side, we're going to switch back across to the other side. Now we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to add another layer to it. So I'm changing my position so you can see I'm still inhaling, filling up the belly, pelvis tilts forward, big sway in the back. Exhale, I'm loading the big toe as I scoop. But what we're going to add to it is, as we exhale, drawing that navel in, scooping, the hand that is free, the hand of the knee that is down, we're going to reach straight up to the ceiling. Inhale, we can let that shoulder soften as we fill up the belly, pelvis tilts forward. Exhale, pressing into that big toe, scoop, navel to spine, nice big lift and reach. I want to see how high can we lift that hand and shoulder. I don't want to drop my opposite shoulder. I don't want to go into a side bend on this other side. I want to scoop, load, and lift high. See if you can feel that stretch from the front of the hip. Kind of get lifted up. Inhale, we let it soften. Exhale, scoop, navel to spine, reach. How does this feel through that hip? How does it feel getting into that side body space, maybe into the low back? How does it feel up into the shoulder? Then we're going to switch and do the same thing on the other side. So again, big toes should be tucked and loaded. Nice inhale, letting that belly fill up, pelvis tilts forward. Exhale, navel to spine, scoop the pelvis, load the big toe, and now we're adding in lift. Inhale as we soften, filling that belly up. Exhale, navel to spine. Make sure we're loading down into that big toe as we scoop the pelvis, and then lift. See if we can feel that lift, moving that front of the hip, stretch up into the abdominal viscera. Inhale, softening. Exhale, nice reach. How does it feel different on this side? Is it a bigger stretch? Does it feel tighter and restricted? Does it feel shaky on one side more so than the other side? All of those are going to be really helpful and important assessment points. If it feels shakier on one side, I'm going to assume that that means that that side has some neurological instability in relationship to the other side. There is a lack of balance of neurological stability. That's a big deal. That's the area, that's one of the things that we want to work on. We need to bring that stability back, because if you have more, if you feel less shaky on one side than the other side, we can extrapolate this to our gait mechanics. If we're standing up, walking through one leg on a side that feels shakier than the other side, that's going to put us at an increased fall risk. So I want to notice those, which means that these movements, the more that we do them, they will help to work that neurological stability. We need to work those pathways to get them stronger. Once we get 5 on this side, we're switching back to the other side again. We're still big toe loaded. Inhale, belly comes forward, pelvis tilts forward, big sway in the back. Exhale, we're still loading down, scooping, drawing that navel in, but instead of reaching up, we're now going to rotate our chest to the back of the chair. And I want to see how much can we rotate our square chest. In fact, I'm going to just say, let's place hands across the shoulders if you can. If you need to hold on to that back of the chair, I'll give you a different instruction. So if you can bring both hands up, as you scoop, you're turning your chest as far towards the back of the chair as you can. Inhale as you come back forward. Allow the pelvis to tilt, sway in the back. Exhale, load the big toe, scoop, draw the navel in, and rotate towards the back of the chair. Want to make sure that as we're rotating to the chair, that we're not letting that knee rotate with us. Keep that knee solid and square, both the front knee and the back knee. If anything, you can kind of try to hold them in a counter rotation that will increase what we're feeling in that low back area. Make sure that if that low back feels tight, sore, and painful, that we're not moving into pain. So it might be a very limited range of motion if it is sore and painful. If you need to hold on to the back of the chair while doing this, that's fine. What we'll do instead is as you scoop, draw that navel in, we can bring that other hand to the chair and see if we can slowly turn our shoulders towards that chair. I don't want to pull with our hands sharply. I want to still move from the shoulders, but the hands can be a little bit of guide and support. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Notice how far are you able to go? What is the quality of the range of motion on this side? Because I want to compare it when we come to the other side. So again, big toes tucked and loaded. Inhale, filling up that belly, sway in the back, pelvis tilts forward. Exhale, navel to spine, loading down, nice scoop. Still want to feel that light stretch in the front. Then hands are crossed as we exhale, rotating towards that back of the chair. How does it feel different on this side compared to the other side? Again, is one side shaky, like it's hard to do? Does one side burn a little bit more? Not uncommon for that thigh of the leg that's in the back to start to burn a little bit. Is it more on one side than on the other? Does the left quad burn more than the right quad, or the other way around? Again, that will be an indication of some neurological instability, not necessarily at the level of the quad, but I would assume that that side, what we're working on, rotation through load related to our gait, is a little offline, and we need to program it. So this would be a movement that I would want to encourage doing more throughout the day. Good. All right, so at this point, we're going to go ahead and come back down to the floor, laying on our backs, bringing our feet back up on the chair. And we're going to go through our crocodile and turtle breath again. And this is a nice little assessment point to if we're able to compare it to the beginning of the class. I want to see if our breath feels a little easier. Are we able to get a little bigger in that balloon? Maybe you're able to feel some different levels of stretch, especially in the low back area. If you feel tightness and restriction related to the inhale of your breath, that's like in a specific area, maybe you feel it right side low back or left side low back, or maybe on one area of your rib cage or in your upper back, that's going to be relevant. And again, really helpful details to bring into a session with me so that we can talk about what we need to do. So making our big C shapes with our hands, thumbs in the back, index fingers in the front. Again, we're going to do our 5 up to 10. Slow inhale, slow exhale. Filling up that beach ball on the inhale, flattening it out with that belly button as you draw that navel into the spine. Making sure that the shoulders and the head remain soft on both inhale and exhale. So I don't want shoulders rounding up towards the ceiling. I want to keep them soft on the floor. With each inhale, we're seeing if we can expand that beach ball a little bit wider, a little bit bigger, especially through the side and the low back area. Once we get 5 to 10 breaths, allow the knees to open up to shoulder width. The feet are still touching. Hands are pressing the knees away so that the elbows are fully extended, and then actively pulling the knees back into the hands so that we're creating that nice tension through the abdominal core. I want to maintain that tension as we come back into that crocodile breath, expanding into that beach ball. On the exhale, as we draw navel to spine, doing a light Kegel. And then as we inhale, feel that inhale breath move down into that bowl of the pelvis, pushing that Kegel out and away. Can you feel that level of stretch in the pelvic floor, similar to what we felt in the abdominal wall? On that inhale, abdominal wall expands out. Can we feel that same thing down into the pelvic floor? Once we get 5 to 10 breaths, I want to take our time getting up, move very slowly. Again, I want to make sure we're not dizzy or lightheaded. And based on what you found in this session, be curious. You're welcome to put something in the comments. Let me know what things you're figuring out, finding, or schedule a session. I'd love to chat with you about it.